Hi, my name is Daniel, and this is the story of how my marriage of 7 years fell apart. You might think that after 7 years, a marriage becomes unshakable, built on trust and shared experiences. I used to think the same. From the outside, we were the picture-perfect couple, smiles in every photo, and holidays that looked like something out of a travel ad. But sometimes, perfection is just a polished mask for something broken underneath. For me, the cracks started showing in subtle ways. Rachel, my wife, had become more distant. She used to greet me at the door when I came back from my business trips, excited to hear about my day. But over time, the smiles faded, the conversations grew shorter, and her phone became her constant companion. I chalked it up to the stress of motherhood, routine, or maybe even my own busy schedule. I was away a lot for work, weeks at a time, and I trusted her to hold the fort at home. Trust. Funny how that works. It all came crashing down one evening when I was flipping through photos on her phone. She had left it on the couch, unlocked. I was just looking at some of the pictures of our kids while I was away, when my finger accidentally swiped to the next image. What I saw wasn't a picture. It was a video. In it, Rachel was in our bedroom with another man. She was the one holding the camera, laughing, as if she wanted to keep the memory alive. That was the moment the air left my lungs. My own home, my own bed, a place I thought was safe, had been turned into a backdrop for her betrayal. I didn't need to hear her explain. The video said it all. The trust was gone. The love? I didn't even know anymore. But one thing I did know, I couldn't stay. I couldn't keep pretending. I knew what I had to do. You know, when I first confronted Rachel about the cheating, I didn't expect her to fight back as hard as she did. I thought foolishly that we could handle things like adults. Maybe that was my first mistake, thinking someone who could lie to your face for months would suddenly be reasonable when the truth came out. The divorce process wasn't just messy, it was exhausting. Rachel played the part of the victim perfectly, claiming I'd neglected her with all my business trips, and that she deserved more because of all she had sacrificed. Sacrificed? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was the one who worked day and night to keep us comfortable. But none of that mattered once the lawyers got involved. Her demands were relentless. She wanted the house, the car, and a significant portion of my savings, basically everything we'd built together. She even fought for full custody of our son, knowing that would break me more than losing money ever could. I think that's what stung the most, how she weaponized our child, using him as leverage to get more out of me. At one point, she claimed that I'd hidden assets. That was a lie, of course, but it still dragged the process out, adding more legal fees and sleepless nights. I remember sitting in court, listening to her lawyer paint me as this cold, selfish workaholic who cared more about profits than my family. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there thinking, is this really happening? Does she actually believe this nonsense? In the end, I gave her the house, part of my savings, and worst of all, primary custody of our son. She played the system well, and I was too tired to fight anymore. I thought that handing her what she wanted would buy me peace. I was wrong. Her appetite for more didn't end with the divorce papers. After the court finalized everything, I thought the storm had passed. I moved into a smaller apartment, nothing fancy, just enough for me to start over. It was quiet, lonely even, but at least it was mine. For a while, I felt relieved. The constant tension and arguing were gone, and I could finally focus on rebuilding my life. But then I started hearing things. Rachel wasn't doing well financially. The house? She refinanced it for cash. The car? Traded it in for something flashier, only to realize she couldn't keep up with the payments. The settlement money? Gone in less than a year. She spent it all on designer clothes, expensive vacations, and God knows what else. Meanwhile, I was careful. I cut back on unnecessary expenses, focused on my business, and made sure I had enough saved for the future, especially for my son. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. Rachel, on the other hand, couldn't seem to grasp the concept of budgeting. I guess when you've spent years living off someone else's efforts, it's hard to suddenly live within your means. Watching her struggle didn't bring me any joy, though. If anything, it just confirmed what I already knew. No amount of money would ever satisfy her. It was about a year after the divorce when the news came. My uncle, a man I hadn't spoken to much in the last few years, had passed away. He wasn't exactly warm or approachable, but he was family. And apparently, he'd been sitting on a small fortune, a fortune he decided to leave to me. I remember sitting in the lawyer's office when they told me. At first, I thought it was a mistake. My uncle was never one to give away anything, not even his time. Yet, there it was, a crisp, no-strings-attached inheritance that could have set me up back to my former financial position for life. I should have felt happy. Relief, maybe. But what I felt was something else entirely. Irony. Life has this strange way of giving you what you need after you've already lost what matters. 7 years of marriage gone. Half my savings gone. My peace of mind gone. And now, when I'm just starting to rebuild, the universe hands me a golden ticket. But here's the thing about windfalls. They don't just attract blessings. They attract vultures. And I knew Rachel was circling. You see, Rachel always had a sixth sense for money. She'd sniff out opportunity the way a bloodhound tracks a scent. And with her lifestyle, the designer clothes, the luxury vacations she couldn't afford anymore, I knew it was only a matter of time before she found out about the inheritance. The moment she did, she'd come back, claws out, claiming she was entitled to a piece. I wasn't going to let that happen. Rachel taught me a valuable lesson during our marriage. Always think ahead. 3 steps ahead, to be exact. So, before the ink even dried on the paperwork, I got to work. I set up a trust, a legal shield that would keep the money out of her reach. The trust wasn't in my name. Technically, the money didn't belong to me anymore. It belonged to the business I'd set it under, a structure so tight even the most persistent ex-wife wouldn't find a crack to slip through. Every cent of that inheritance was tied up, protected, and untouchable. I wasn't doing it out of spite. It wasn't about revenge or anger. It was about survival. Rachel had already taken enough. This was Rachel we were talking about. She couldn't let me go, not completely. A year had passed since the divorce, but I had a feeling she wasn't finished. She hated the idea of me moving on, especially when her life wasn't going the way she thought it would. The claim? She accused me of hiding assets during the divorce, specifically the inheritance I'd received from my uncle after we split. She wanted more money, claiming I'd cheated her out of her rightful share. It was bold, I'll give her that, but also completely baseless. The truth is, Rachel had been struggling ever since the divorce. She burned through the settlement faster than I thought humanly possible. Expensive vacations, designer handbags, even a failed business venture where she invested in some boutique skincare line that no one asked for. It didn't take long for the money to dry up. She was supposed to use the child support I paid her for our son, but even that didn't seem enough to keep her afloat. It wasn't about the money for him. It was about her lifestyle. She wanted to live the way we used to, but without the work or discipline it took to maintain it. And when her bank account couldn't keep up, she started looking for a lifeline. Unfortunately, that lifeline was me. Rachel's envy played a big role too. She couldn't stand to see me doing well. The inheritance? That was just the perfect excuse. She knew I'd never flaunt my money, but the fact that I had it, the fact that I was stable and at peace, drove her crazy. To her, my success meant her failure, and that wasn't something she could accept. I walked into the courtroom that morning with a strange sense of calm. I knew Rachel would perform. She always had a knack for drama. Sure enough, as soon as she took her seat, she wore this expression, part heartbreak, part righteous indignation. It was her favorite mask, one I'd seen too many times during our marriage. Her lawyer was a smooth-talking type, the kind of guy who could sell you sand in a desert. He started by painting Rachel as the victim, leaning hard into her struggles since the divorce. According to him, I was some heartless mastermind who had hidden away a fortune just to cheat her out of what she deserved. He talked about how she had supported me during our marriage, how she had helped me build my career, and how it was only fair that she share in the fruits of my success, even after our separation. I kept my face neutral, but inside I couldn't help but marvel at the sheer audacity of it. Rachel didn't support my career. If anything, she resented it. My long hours and business trips weren't about building wealth for us. They were about fixing the messes she created with her reckless spending. But there she was, sitting in that courtroom, letting her lawyer spin a fairy tale about our life together. When it was my lawyer's turn, the mood shifted. He didn't need to embellish or get emotional. Facts were on our side. First, he presented the timeline. The inheritance I received came after the divorce was finalized, not during our marriage. There was no way Rachel could claim I had hidden it because at the time of our settlement, it didn't even exist. Then he introduced the trust documents. The inheritance wasn't in my name. It had been legally transferred into a business trust. My lawyer explained, in simple terms for the court, how the trust operated. The money wasn't mine to spend. It was tied up in investments and managed by a board. Even if I wanted to give Rachel a single penny from that trust, I couldn't. It was untouchable. The turning point came when my lawyer presented evidence of Rachel's financial recklessness. He showed bank statements, credit card records, and other documents that painted a clear picture. Rachel had blown through her divorce settlement in less than a year. Luxury vacations, designer clothes, extravagant parties. She hadn't been struggling because of me. She'd been struggling because of her own choices. Rachel's composure began to crack. At first, she tried to look calm and confident, but as my lawyer laid out the evidence, her mask slipped. She shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her expression hardening. By the time the judge started asking her lawyer-pointed questions about her claims, I could see the panic in her eyes. Her lawyer did his best to salvage the case, but it was clear the wind had been knocked out of their sails. They had no solid evidence, just accusations and emotional appeals. And when Rachel herself took the stand, she only made things worse. Her answers were vague, inconsistent, and, at times, downright contradictory. It was like watching a dam slowly crumble, piece by piece. When the judge finally dismissed the case, it was as though a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Rachel sat there, stunned as if she couldn't believe what had just happened. Her lawyer leaned in to whisper something to her, but she barely reacted. The reality of her defeat was sinking in. For me, the moment wasn't about victory. I didn't feel triumphant or vindicated. What I felt was relief. Like I could finally close a door that should have been shut a long time ago. As I left the courtroom that day, I didn't look back. Not at Rachel, not at her lawyer, not at any of it. I just walked out into the sunlight, took a deep breath, and kept moving forward. She underestimated me. She always did. But this time, I came prepared. I've had a lot of time to think about everything, about the marriage, the divorce, and everything Rachel tried to pull after it ended. I won't lie to you, it wasn't easy. Losing trust in someone you spent 7 years building a life with. That stings. But here's the thing. You can't let the bitterness of the past weigh you down forever. Looking back now, I don't feel anger toward Rachel anymore. What I feel is relief. She's someone who always took, someone who always felt entitled to more than she gave. People like that, they'll never stop trying to take. And they'll always be looking for the next victim to latch onto. But I've learned something important, something she never did.